36, right? Yes.
That's correct, yes.
Hello, and welcome to episode 36 of the Foam News Collective podcast. I'm KT, and I'm coming to you victorious, joyful, because on May 29th, we recorded the last episode of the podcast, and I made a prediction that the N1 Dart was designed to replace the Elite Dart. We released that podcast June 1st. On June 6th, the embargo dropped, and Blaster Hub had the first video confirming that I was 100% correct with my prediction, and you can't take that celebration away from me. Nobody can.
Just let KT boast about it for a minute. It's
I
okay.
nailed that one, and I am proud of it, frankly. We'll talk about the N1 Dart later. I am, of course, here with Vile Mods. We have no Grimm's Nerf Works this episode, but we do have our special guest host hopping in to join the podcast today, NotNuffNerf. Thank you so much for jumping in kind of last second and doing part of the show with us. Great to have you on here. We're going to talk with Michael Lacek. Wait, I should have asked you this before. Is it Lacek or Lacek, or how, like, it's a subtle pronunciation difference, but how do you pronounce it?
So, it is LASIK, like the eye surgery.
Okay.
It is spelled different, but it is pronounced.
Yeah. It is pronounced like it. Okay, great. That's good to know, even though I'm highly unlikely to use your last name again through this podcast, but now I know. Head game director of Pennsylvania Survival Fest, which just had a really successful event. So we're going to chat about that and the history of Pennsylvania Survival Fest. Mike will be answering questions from our Ko-Fi supporters. We will, of course, play our notorious trivia game. And after that, we are going to talk about the N1 Dart. We're also going to talk about Siren Blasters, 300 FPS nearly off the shelf, a little bit more. And we're also going to talk about some new things coming from Dart Zone and other brands. It's funny because I feel like we keep looping back to some of the same topics these last few weeks, but they're really having a lot of impact, and there's new information about them every time. So I kind of want to take a second before we start to just to say, please make sure you've watched the episode. Check out all the really cool hobby stuff that's going on right now. There's a lot of incredible things happening and really cool new designs. Honestly, if we had seen that there was a 3D printable Super Soaker coming out this week earlier, that might have made it into the show. I just think that that's so cool. But anyway, that is that. That is the outline of the show today. Excited to chat about all this stuff, and we're gonna kind of dig right in with Mike. Mike, how are you doing?
Have
you recovered yet? Have you recovered yet?
No. I really wish I could say that I have. I've definitely had some time to relax, but what I do for work keeps me busy, so I haven't had like a true recovery weekend yet. That's gonna hopefully be this upcoming weekend. And just there's been a lot of like little things that still need to get taken care of to wrap up. Really, what's going to happen for me is like my rest will probably be like the month of July when we get there.
Oh my God. Running big events is so rough. I'm glad you are eventually going to get a break, but what did you when you started doing this, did you know it was going to be like this? Would you have done it if you knew?
Yes. I wouldn't change anything I have done in regards to HvZ as a whole for the world. It is exhausting. It is crazy. I went 42 hours without sleep during the game weekend. And did 25 miles during that. I am proud of those numbers. But getting to be able to tell a story, put on an event, let people have the chance to have an experience unlike any other makes every waking minute worth it.
Now you talk about your overall experience in HvZ. What was your involvement in HvZ before Pennsylvania Survival Fest? How'd you get started?
So I am one of the, I almost want to call it classic cases of, I was touring colleges, saw an interesting poster, went to the school for unrelated reasons, and that was Grove City College in Western PA. During my first semester there, found that HvZ existed on campus. I had brought all my Nerf stuff because I had heard something like it existed, and was very intrigued by it. So I like puzzles, I like strategy games, I did trading card games and chess when I was little. But one of the things that I always enjoyed was I like things where the game changes. So having HvZ be, yes, there is some strategy, yes, there is some planning and coordination that go into it, but the fact that very rarely, almost never, can you play the same game twice. And it's always a new challenge. It's always something different.
Right.
Pairing that with I went to school for mechanical engineering, so that just, goes right nice and easy into modding. And actually, I had convinced my parents at like 19 to go to End War 2018, on the grounds of, hey, I get to network with other engineers.
Oh, interesting. Interesting. Yeah, I always use Taffy as the example too. Taffy partly got their entry into the engineering school that they're in based on the skewer.
Yeah.
That was part of their there's a real sort of like, I hate using the term STEM, but like there's a real STEM aspect to this hobby that is not to be ignored. It's a very real impact of it.
Just like, I now work as an engineer, and there are very few skills that I have picked up through HvZ and my involvement in the Nerf community that haven't had some level of carryover into what I do professionally.
Yeah. That's awesome.
So did that in college. Obviously COVID happened during that time, and going into COVID, I was starting to see, okay, what would it take to run an event on campus? What would it take to host an invite? I had played End War. I went to, believe it or not, Penn State 2019, right before COVID happened. Really enjoyed it, loved the greater community beyond just what was existing on my campus. And so I wanted the chance to be able to host something. Unfortunately, pandemic happened like everywhere else.
Right.
And thanks to some of the connections I had made before COVID, talking with people coming out of it. So this would have been fall of 21 and then spring of 22. I got to host 2 invites on campus before I graduated. The latter being one that I still hear some people chatter about from time to time, of those that had attended, which was, it was Willy Wonka themed. It was wonderful. It was great. It was the right kind of like off the wall zany that you would expect from HvZ. Everyone had a good time.
Theme choice. That's
right?
Such a great theme choice. Yeah.
And after that event was over, we had probably 100 some people, 80, 100 people. And it was really interesting because it was, in my mind, kind of like a generational shift, because you have some people that were playing that were on the older end of players going into COVID, people that had started playing in college, played through college, played now they graduated, ran events, you name it, playing this game, as well as you have a bunch of people that are getting to play invites for the very first time, all in a room together. You had on top of that, Xavier was able to attend that particular one, and it was just like the word that's been described is almost like a Renaissance painting of like past and future HvZ at that game. But coming out of that, people had asked, "You gonna do another one?" And I'm like, "Well, I'm graduating. Not sure yet. We're coming out of COVID. Want to see how other events are doing. See what's going on." Attended End War 22. And coming out of that event, I was both happy to see End War come back. I really have enjoyed for everything that End War is, everything that End War has created, and I can't state that enough. But knowing that End War, in an effort to both to, in my perspective, evolve with the times, had definitely tried to increase the PvP aspect, trying to, with the Dart Zone Pro Tour that was that year. And there are a lot of people, it's one of the interesting things I like to look at. Any big multi-day event that has HvZ as an option, normally if you like Maryland Mayhem, End War, HvZ seems to have the biggest draw overall. Now, it could just be that it's placed on the right day because it's the middle day of the event. But it always seemed, especially to me, that is what people were interested in. And so that and some conversations with people wanting to offer kind of this multi-day HvZ only event really seemed to gain some traction. And at that point, it was people had talked me into it. I'm normally not the kind, like there are times where I'll be very gung-ho about something, but very commonly people will talk me into things.
Well, had you considered having PvP elements and stuff at this event, or?
So, competitive wise, no, never, never in a million years. Still don't. Because
running a competitive tournament, it's a whole separate tone.
And like if you had asked me pre-COVID, hey, I want to start up a new event, I want to get people's interest, what is something unique I can do? Competitive PvP. Because at that time, outside of what was Boiler Dome and the Dart Zone Pro Tour, Foam Pro Tour, there weren't any like competitive marketed events. Now, if you were to ask me, HvZ. Maryland Mayhem has competitive. I just saw the Atlanta Blaster Club. They're working on hosting a tournament to raise money. I know there is a group, New Jersey, New England, somewhere up there that's trying to host a competitive event. They were marketing.
Uno and TNT are doing more and more things. They're putting on more and more stuff. And then also, New England Extreme Dart is attempting to start up a new event as well, which is coming up soon. So
that was the one I was thinking of.
There are a lot of opportunities now, yeah.
And like I even know at one point, because of the number of competitive teams that are in Ohio, they've talked about hosting stuff. And so there are enough options that if you want to have your competitive event, you want to play that sport end of things, that exists. And I think it is absolutely lovely. I've tried it, not to that level. It isn't necessarily something for me, but I know there are a lot of people that absolutely love it, and I think that's great.
Totally. Everybody, everybody wants a different experience. Everybody's kind of focused on different things, and the people who, I just recorded my community crosshairs, and I focused on Sarah of Team Magic Smoke, and she's an example of somebody who is an incredible like zombie leader. And I believe was doing that before she started playing competitive. And there are these people who are ready to dive headfirst into all aspects of the of the hobby, but that's not necessarily for everybody. And I mean, this having the multi-day event, it seems like really lets you dig in on story and like have more long played out ideas and missions, and give people more rest time, I'm guessing. I don't fully know your schedule that you ran for PSF.
One of the things that I don't want to say it's like lesson one for when it comes to HvZ is things will not always work. And so there is always a level. I like to describe it as you are now writing a role-playing game, whether that's D&D or whatever your game of choice is. But instead of them rolling dice, you are now judging people on their actual physical skill, and now adding a bunch of other elements to it that to try and you can do all the prep in the world. Stuff won't always work. One of the phrases that I think's hilarious that Alex from Detroit Dart Talk, who actually was on the team this year, had coined previously was he called it Mike's Magic 30 Minutes, where I'd look at a room, assess essentially how are the players feeling, what's going on, where is the game at progression-wise, what needs to happen. I need 30 minutes. We're going to see what we can do, make some changes to what's happening next, and it just like course corrects everything.
Yeah, the ability to redirect while things are in motion is such an important skill for this kind of stuff.
And it's not an easy one to get.
Yeah, that's tough to develop for sure. But so everybody else in this chat has only been to Maryland Mayhem.
Guilty.
And I know for Not Enough and for Vile, it was your first major event. And yeah, how do the two of you feel about going to a multi-day HvZ at this point? At this point,
I like the idea of it. Maryland, for me, Maryland was probably the biggest deal ever, a lot more than it probably is for a lot of other people, because I've never been to a Nerf event full stop.
Oh, your first one is always...
I mean, for my
a little
first
overwhelming
one,
almost.
Yeah, it was like totally an oversensory experience, especially because it was my first one. And then, it's kind of like going to the World Series for your first baseball game.
Yeah.
Your first time. And it's like, wow, it was really, really nice. And it only opens you up to now wanting to go to every single one you can go to. So, yeah, when I found out about it was a shame I couldn't make the PAs. I don't think I'm able to make the PA Survival
We all
Fest,
wanted to make it to Survival Fest this year, but none of us were able to.
I was definitely trying to still get into the end war. Go ahead, guys.
I was going to say, I know there are a lot of people just between life and different things were unable to attend this year, and I know that I was sad to not to know and hearing that, but at the same time, I'm also we will be doing one next year. I don't think people would like looking at the feedback and everything. I think there would be more riots if I said that we were going to end on that and not do another one.
Right.
There is a lot that goes into both running and just being at an event for the first time. So I guess to give a little more breakdown, going into this year, first thing was that we had actually dropped Pennsylvania from the event name, mostly due to our first year we were at Mount Aloysius, and it was good, but the school is small, and we wanted to see what else was out there, potentially find a permanent home somewhere that wasn't that could handle, 200, 300, 400 people. So that
did have, you said 200 people, right? That's double your previous attendance.
Yep, we had doubled last year's numbers.
So how did the campus work out for you?
So that's the fun part. We doubled the player attendance, but the actual venue size increased by a factor of 10.
Oh,
Wow.
geez.
So despite the fact that we had twice as many attendees, it actually felt smaller than the first year's event did.
Interesting. That's interesting. I mean, can you kind of counter that by sort of minimizing the amount of travel in the missions, or?
So we did what we could. It's hard because a
Yeah.
lot of it gets pre-planned, and so you can only do so much.
Right.
I think the way we ended up countering it was after mission 2, when we finally had all the players in a singular space and could see that, it allowed us to adjust future missions in a way that, hey, we know that with these players, this is what this looks like. So there was maybe a green space that we weren't sure if it could hold everyone. Well, we now know that can hold everyone, so we can move something there that we originally were concerned about using that space because it wouldn't be big enough.
Yeah. Interesting. Yeah, those kinds of adjustments that you have to make, I guess, on the fly.
Almost like every consecutive event is a learning experience. Kind of teaches you new parameters, new limits you can now test and all that.
Yeah. What speaking of which, what I know that you did a survey after the event. I'm curious about what kind of feedback you might have gotten from that. What kind of lessons you feel like you might have learned from this one that you're going to be applying to the next one?
So there was so the feedback is still available. I will gladly, like, if someone waits till the last day of June to write something in, I will probably still go back and check it. But overall, it is very. We were at Penn State. Penn State is a very, very large campus.
Yeah.
And just the player and community mentality has shifted so drastically from the last time there was a major event on that campus. And sort of the design of campus has led to it actually being not necessarily the best place. I know there has been a lot of outcry in the feedback to look at other options, and we are. I can already state that there is a list. There was a list last year of options. There's a list again. If we were to return to Penn State, we would actually be changing how the game gets designed to better reflect campus. So one of the big issues with it is, while Penn State has a lot of amazing green space, it also, like, it is a city. Straight up, when people were asking me directions, I was like, you need to go a block that way and 2 blocks that way to find where you're supposed to be.
Right.
And so the comment that was both given in feedback and kind of bounced around was, if Penn State was where we were returning, that it would be you would have a safe walk to potentially a green or a series of buildings we would be playing around. The mission would occur there, and then it would be a safe walk back to minimize roads, minimize any sort of like traffic, any sort of weird wonkiness with traversing campus. That being said, there are other options that are a little bit more usable, and that is something we are already looking into, already kind of have some feelers out, been talking to some people. I have my own ideas and thoughts, and because the other thing you need to think about with a campus is not just, does the campus hold everyone, because that is one of the issues. If you don't get a big enough campus, you run into, hey, there is not enough space to move everyone around or to have them do anything other than just exist. But then you have to think about, and this is something we actually look at, okay, we were at Penn State. What's parking like? This year parking was paid. It wasn't ideal. It was unfortunate. That is something being taken into consideration. Okay, what sort of food options are available? What kind of stress does this put on the local community in terms of food and housing and amenities? What other events could also be vying for space? What's it like to potentially fly in? We had players that flew in for the event from, I think the furthest person I met was from Colorado.
Nice.
That's great.
There's a club in Boulder, Colorado that wanted to kind of see how we did things on the hope that they might be able to develop a game on their campus beyond what they're currently doing. And so they actually flew out and participated in Survival Fest this year. They're amazing. They're great. I'm hoping that when they get things, or when I get some time to potentially fly out and see what they're currently doing. And so when you're thinking about putting together an event, it's more than just the event itself. I mean, convention location, that has same list of criteria, but now we want to make sure, is it indoors? Is it outdoors?
Right.
Right.
Yeah, I know that Mayhem they're on the same campus as they were previously, but the stairs are such a thing with that campus. There's so many great spots, but how can you design a game around the stairs? And I think they're still kind of struggling with that situation because they're a hazard. But you can't really avoid them fully, and so they have the rules to sort of avoid having actual play on the stairs, but then you wind up with constant holds. And yeah, it's just, there's these unique things at every single campus, and then I really appreciate that you're also thinking about the impacts on the local community, because the Mayhem's always seems to line up with orientations that are going on, and hotels get impacted, and it's we're not, in the grand scheme of events, Nerf events aren't that big, but 200, 300, 500 people is not insignificant in a local community like that, for sure. One thing that I was really impressed by your event specifically this year was your media work. The really drawn out, if we want to go way back now, when we first started talking, the really drawn out theme reveal was really fun. We actually had to hold ourselves back from reporting on every theme elimination because it would have just been constant shorts about it. But your eventual video reveals and just the quality of your graphic design work going into that show, you clearly have a really dedicated team working on that project together. I think all of these events, they fly or sink based on the dedication of their teams. So I'm curious about your process for doing media, if you have someone on your team who's dedicated to doing that stuff. And how important that is, how much of a part of the success that is, and also just if you've got people on the team that you just want to take a second to shout out.
So, I could, in terms of shouting out the team, there are so many wonderful people. I can't state that enough. One thing that is kind of honestly bringing things together, it was a lesson learned from this year, but it is also something that we strive to do, is to some degree, to put this together, you have to have kind of a business mentality to it. And so part of that is finding the right people for the right jobs. So Kevin, who is someone that got brought on this year, works as a professional graphic designer, has run local events for Pittsburgh Tech, PTC. He is one of their game runners for their HvZs. Just he did most of the graphic work this year. He just is very passionate about it. One thing that is very big and it's very unique to Survival Fest is that unlike most of the other large events, we are not comprised of a singular group. So Maryland, well, yes, you have the Maryland Foam Alliance, which are amazing guys. I love them. I was so glad that they were able to come. And UMBC, that is all Maryland-based people. End War with UNC Charlotte at the helm for HvZ, that is the local club putting together the HvZ for their campus, being reinforced by Drac and his team. Again, amazing people. I am so excited to get to return to their campus this year for End War. One of the mods we had for Survival Fest is also helping helm End War this year, and she is just phenomenal. What makes Survival Fest different, and I didn't even know it at the time that this was different, is I think it's 7 different states represented in the current governing body of the event.
Wow, that's a big deal, actually.
So you've got New York, Pennsylvania, Maryland, Ohio, Michigan, and North Carolina, all with representatives from organizations from each of those different places participating to bring this together. The other thing is, like, there is with that whole running it like a business mentality, we have multiple people on the team that have background in events management, people that have some of those skills designed for, hey, we should think about the local community impact. That is not my first thought. Graphic design, video editing, art, people that can do any and all of that. On top of that, most of them, in their own respect at their own times, ran their own events, whether that was for a club on campus or invitational level. And so it means that there are a lot of people, if not most of the team, that could honestly mix and match in terms of what responsibilities are because they've all done it before. At the same time, there are things that some of them do extremely well. And so that allows for us to kind of put people where they are both most passionate and most effective. Didn't happen as cleanly as I would have liked for this year. It's a big part of next year's list. One of the other things that is different is we have a full interview process. To be invited onto the team is an application that gets deliberated over, and then an interview process, which can be anywhere from an hour to 2 with myself and normally a couple other mods. And then more deliberation after that. And so that's just, I almost want to say getting in the door. But that's even like, I am currently in the process of doing end of the year or end of the season one-on-ones with the entire team, just so I can hear personally how they felt about things, what went right, what went wrong, what they would like to see changed, how they feel they could be better utilized in the future so that we can make those organizational adjustments moving into next year.
To a lot of our listeners, that probably sounds like a really big thing, but if you think about it, each of these people on some level you're trusting them with 200 like strangers. And their experience and their safety and the result of this, in many cases, like an expensive trip that they took on the hope that, so like, it's important to take it that seriously. That's really, I really appreciate that a lot, actually. I think that is super respectable, and that you take that process that seriously.
And to answer kind of your question, yes, we have some dedicated people for graphics and promotional. Yes, there is a little bit of everyone kind of helping put themselves out there to aid in its development. The theme reveal this year was actually done because it was offset from year one. So I am also this is, as stated before, I started doing this because people convinced me to do it. And so I'm like, if people want me to do this, I want to do what people want to see within reason. Yeah. So for the first year, and while the exact format for next year has not been figured out yet, the players will have some level of involvement in picking the theme.
Ooh, okay.
So for the first year, the 10 mods we had going into 2023 did a vote, and the top 6 options out of our vote got presented to the players and said, here you go. What do you guys want to see made? And so the players voted, and Adventure won out as the theme.
Okay.
With, ironically, Western is a very close second that year. For year 2, which was this past year, we went back to that same vote the mods had and said, what was the number 1 pick from that? That's what we're going to do for this year. And that's how we ended up with Spies for 2024.
Okay.
So
I mean, because you were already, your reveal this year was leaning kind of towards an ARG. Is it going to be kind of like that, except there's actually a result, like an effect on it?
I'm not sure yet. That is a conversation in August. Like,
for sure.
Our first meeting for 2024 was the first Sunday in August. Our first meeting for 2025 will be the first Sunday in August 2024.
Yeah. Take that July off. Take that July off.
Yeah, we will be at End War. We will have a table. People can buy merch. Because I know some players were asking about it with stickers, pins, patches, and the whatnot.
Yeah.
But that is very much a conversation for August. That's been the running joke of, hey, we want to do this. August conversation. Let's take a break. But there will be some level of player involvement. I love kind of the feedback. I said, I'm doing this because people had asked me to, and I like doing it, and they like seeing what I have to do. So,
I have a question for you, Mike. Now that you're pulled into it, and now that we're here, and there's no turning back, how do you feel about it now? If you could do anything different, would you do that, or are there any aspects of this that you would do differently?
Honestly, no. I would like to be the change you want to see. And so running these games is the games that I wish I could be playing at. And so I had the chance to attend End War 2018, which if you talk to anyone that's been around at that time, they will state that that was one of the best games ever by far, myself included. And what was really interesting about that game was not only was it that they had like 700 or 800 players, which was my first event outside of what I did at my college campus. So I get the whole first time deer in a headlights awestruck. But you can actually, believe it or not, the HvZ End War YouTube channel that has videos from that year, all of their mission briefings are live. You could go watch what the briefings were and how they integrated story into the game. They actually, in their Meet the Mods video that they had released, or it might have been part of their safety briefing, actually hinted at who the final villain was at the end of the weekend. And
that's cool.
And just the production value and quality of experience, both from an aesthetic and mechanical front, is something that really struck home with me. It is something that I've loved seeing. It's something that, like, at the end of the day, you said it, people are paying to come take a vacation and participate, they should be given, the utmost respect. They are guests. They are the ones willing to put that time in. And so putting something on that is worthy of that in both quality overall is very much where my intention is.
I love that.
When you say live briefings, what is the alternative?
So,
you had
when I went to Maryland, I'm pretty sure like all of our little missions, maybe my team, I don't know the others, but my team, my guy was like, he was briefing us right there in the flesh. So I guess I'm trying to understand.
For End War 18, all of their briefings were YouTube videos.
Oh, okay. YouTube videos.
Yeah.
All right, that makes sense.
The video is live on YouTube. That would be the clarification.
Okay.
Yeah, that was actually, so Maryland this year.
I think that's the one that keeps going around, the 2018 one. That was like the one that really like shell-shocked everybody. Like everybody brought a lot of people in. And then after that, it was just exponential, right? So
to an extent. There was, but it was knockoff Disney themed because, legal reasons. But
of course,
they did songs for every briefing.
Oh my God.
Like musical or?
Yeah, my favorite was I'll Make a Pro Out of You instead of I'll Make a Man Out of You from Mulan, which was the very first one.
That's hilarious.
There is actually, I'll see if I can send it in the chat if I can pull it up. I actually had cobbled together a YouTube playlist that actually had briefing and then gameplay footage for I think almost every mission except maybe mission 0.
That's great.
And it's actually
we need more recap videos, like carefully put together recap videos of our events, because I really love. I was just watching a good portion of Talanax Armory's recap of your event, which was kind of where I got what I was able to glean about what it was actually like being there. But even that was a great video. I haven't watched the whole thing, but like that was just like well put together. His discussion about it is really good. But like until you take multiple people's perspectives and work them together into one video and have one central person editing it, I don't think you can ever sort of get the full picture. I feel like
you still can't. So one of the interesting things about specifically this year was that I don't know if you guys have heard of Thunderdome.
What,
yes, like I heard about it, about the one dude and how it changed his life.
Yep.
And basically it's like a very inspiring, motivational, inspirational story, right?
Yeah. So that was Rob. He was Rob Lear. He did a documentary about HvZ and Nerf and how it
yeah, I was just looking at this. Yeah.
Impacted his life. Yep.
He actually was at End War 18, had a 20-foot selfie stick, and live streamed missions 1 and 2.
Oh my goodness.
So some of the uncut footage is in there. Now, in this playlist, I've included the missions because for mission 1, they actually had us in a bunch of different groups. And so you're seeing the briefing that I got.
Right.
So that's the other thing, and this is one of the things that Maryland does very different, and I think it's really cool that they do it differently. The way you guys, or the way everyone gets briefed at Maryland is unique mostly to Maryland. So the way our mission structure is you get a briefing. It's normally in a lecture hall or a banquet hall or some sort of space. You get released out into play. You play for 1 or 2 hours, and then you are able to come back for a debrief, normally re-gear, potentially leading into a meal break, and then you get your next briefing in that room. That way, if you want to swap your gear, swap your stuff, there's like a pre-dedicated time to do that.
Yeah.
And instead of just go.
Yeah.
Obviously, everyone has their preference. There is no right or wrong way to do it. But
Well, because I definitely like my experience at Maryland, but this also sounds really cool. Like there's definitely benefits to this, and I mean from the video I've seen, this is more of a classic way to do HvZs, but they all seem to have their merits.
Yeah, some of the other things that that I know we've done that have been really well received. The convention on Friday was was even better this year, and it created. We actually did a modding competition. It was a little off the cuff, and we're hoping to put more planning into it next year. Of like a live in person, show us the thing, let's see what you've created, talk about it.
So you start it at the event? Like you start the mod at the event?
So no.
Or do you bring a mod? Like how does this work?
So for this year it was, we had listed a bunch of categories and people brought stuff. For it being not necessarily the most promoted part of the weekend for this year, the fact we had probably 30-some people participate.
Whoa.
Yeah.
Out of 200 attendees, that is a lot.
Yeah, it's a good chunk.
How many people participated in Merge Masters, and that was online?
Yeah, that was it was depending on how, if you want to say how many people actually finished versus how many people entered, it was actually close. It was around a little bit more than that. I just don't remember the exact number. But even then, with how many people finished and had something at the end, it was still like 20 something, and that was
that's impressive. That's an impressive number of people. Anyway, continue. Sorry, that's impressive.
So it's our intent to increase that, because what we offered during the convention was we had your standard convention floor, vendors. One of the things that was really interesting was we had a lot of Midwest representation. So we had Infectionaut Labs from Missouri. They're actually doing a 24-hour, I think almost 24-hour run campground game where like you are always in play kind of thing. We had Sub-Zero Blaster Battle from up in New York, the Maryland Foam Alliance. They were one of the big sponsors. They actually helped us with some cover for Friday. We had GLASS, which is Great Lakes Action Sports Summit. I think I got that right.
Sounds right.
That is I believe they are working on an event for, I believe, February of next year in Wisconsin. And so we had that on the floor. We also had like some different just community people that were like, hey, I like to make art, involved in HvZ, that sort of thing. We had skills competitions. So for the first year, it was styled like a what we called a 3 blaster competition, where it was like an actual shooting sport kind of thing.
Oh, okay. That's cool.
This year we had changed it to be more HvZ oriented, so that's why we had a modding competition. We had, I think, a sock rolling derby. It's hard to keep track of everything sometimes. I know there was still at least one target competition that existed. And it was just give stuff for people to do. You can only walk around and talk with people for so long. That's one thing I think Maryland does well with pairing the casual PvP with the convention.
Yes, and it wasn't that way last year. And they made a conscious change to that, which I really liked that. I really appreciated that.
So that was, and like our first year, we actually had a panel of creators talking about different aspects of, like, I can't remember if it was content creation or what off the top of my head. Due to the venue we had this year, that was unavailable. The other big highlighted thing that we offer was Z13. So that is from a group out in Detroit. 513 is actually their area code, so it's a play on that. But they do essentially arena-based HvZ. So it is 15 to 30 people in a laser tag arena. We're going to run through a mission. Either we're going to get everyone tagged in 20 minutes or the humans are going to complete their objective in 20 minutes. And one of the biggest things that I've noticed was that for newer players, the easiest way to get them more comfortable with, oh, I got tagged, oh, I can't use fancy things anymore, is to just give them that experience.
Yeah.
And so
have it in a shorter format where there's less at stake.
And so that's part of why Z13 was originally included. This year I was so thankful the Maryland Foam Alliance was able to bring up some of their cover so that we had some really nice, the same cover you saw for the PvP on day 3 of Maryland for the 11th hour. Take that, take about half of that space, you put like 30 people in it and you make them play HvZ.
Oh my goodness.
That's actually pretty terrifying, if I'm honest.
Yeah.
Especially if it's a laser. Well, you said it's a laser tag arena. Is it like the lights are turned down just like it would be during the laser event, or are they actually like full lit?
So when they play every other month. I think their next one is mid-June. I think it's in a couple weeks. They'll do like the first 2 or 3 rounds with the lights on so people get accustomed to the layout, and then they will turn the lights off.
Oh my goodness. It's like mall mutation madness. I love how they just keep evolving the HvZ environment and just keep making it more and more like different, you know? Yeah. Keeps things interesting, I guess. I like that arena-based HvZ. It's scary, but I'm pretty sure it's a lot of fun.
It's actually, so whenever I'm talking with people and there is a recommendation of I want to start having HvZ on campus, what do I do? That is where I always direct people to start. Because even if you don't have that kind of CQB environment, you can easily get like, it is designed for like 15 to 30 people. And so operating with that mentality, that sort of design language, it is a great way to get people used to the concept of the game, used to like basic mechanics. From there, it's normally the concept of like a step up from that is like UMBC's one nights. We actually, that's what Mission 0 is. So like Friday, you would have the convention, Z13, and then Mission 0. And so it gets you used to campus. It gets you kind of to get a feel for how things are going to go.
Right.
I always say it's our goal in whatever time frame to get everyone tagged so that everyone gets to see what that's like. And so that if you are attending or you don't regularly attend events and you want a chance to like, okay, I want to make sure like I know how my gear functions, stuff like that. Want to make sure something isn't going to fall off of me at the wrong time. And some people just decide we're going to do something silly for it. Yeah. And so Mission 0 is again designed into trying to ease people into the concept of playing, ease them into the concept of getting tagged, ease into how intense games can become. Because one thing that has happened a couple times, whether it's at Survival Fest or at other events, is normally it turns into a humans are holding some location and there is a respawn point 10 feet in front of you. It is not moving and you just kind of need to last.
Yeah.
And so I've found that the combination of those two plus the third thing that we've added have been very good at taking players that have maybe either never been to an event or have been to a couple events or maybe have only been to like one style of event and get them very comfortable with how things roll.
Yeah. That's such a great way at looking at the individual experience and figuring out how you can design the overall event around sort of maximizing that and making sure. Because I definitely remember my last year was my 2023 Maryland Mayhem was my first time doing it, and it's kind of like I don't know what it's going to be like when I get tagged. I have no idea, like, how much do I really want to like stretch this out and make sure I don't get tagged? Now even just doing it twice, like it feels very different, but yeah, an opportunity like that sounds really, really cool. I want to lean into our next segment here as a way to sort of wrap up this discussion of Survival Fest, which I'm going to stop saying Pennsylvania at the beginning of it because I hear now I realize now that I haven't been seeing that at the beginning of it, and now I know why. I want to head into the questions from our Ko-Fi supporters. If you support the Foam News Collective on Ko-Fi, you get the opportunity to ask our podcast guests questions, and nobody can stop you. So please be sure to check that out. Link down in the description. And we're going to start off with Teacup Story, who asks, is there a game rule you would like to change if you could, or one that you think is so sacred it can't ever be changed?
So, it's funny because there are a lot of game rules that any game rules that I think could be changed or that aren't sacred enough that are able to be changed have been changed at some point or another. Going from, I think the original design for HvZ had starve timers for zombies. That's gone. Certain tracking metrics. A number of places don't use that anymore. The different respawn methods. Special zombies, ammo restrictions. All of that is stuff that has been changed in the history of HvZ. In terms of the other half of that, the stuff that I think is most sacred is rule 1, rule 0, whatever your particular group likes to call it, of just treating people with respect. Be bad. That is something that should always be kind of in the forefront of people's minds. Just knowing, hey, we're all here, whether we have paid money to do it, volunteered to do it, someone has paid us to do it. We are here at the end of the day to have fun.
Yeah.
And so that rule, people's enjoyment of the experience from a game running perspective should be the focus. And it's because people are like, well, we want the fairest game. We want the game with the best mechanics. We want the game with the best story. I have watched games that have had little to no story, that have been the most single-sided game ever, but everyone came out smiling because everyone just had a good time doing it. And so the concept of making sure everyone is having fun with the experience safely, because is something that really
I think that's one of the
be.
things that our hobby does so well, just in general, is that attitude about play. I don't think, even in the like sweatiest, most competitive settings I've been involved in, everybody comes out of it laughing and joking and friends for the most part.
That's what I was going to say. Like, Nerf is such a fundamentally fun hobby and sport that all these little elements that you guys add, like storylines and lore, it's frosting on the cake material at that point. You know what I mean? No matter what, it's just going to make it that much better always.
Yeah, totally.
Can't go wrong with it.
Next question from Colin Blank. Hey, Mike, had a great time speaking with you and playing in Pennsylvania. What would you say was the moment you were most proud of in this year's game?
So, the moment I was most proud of is one that I cannot take credit for. So what ended up happening was after mission 2, So the theme was spies. So there was like, an intel gathering mission, some sort of heist because, like Mission Impossible, you're always trying to steal something. And Mission 3 was originally designed to be a car chase across campus. And so the concept was there'd be 3 mods that you are escorting. Each would have a briefcase. One of them would have the actual MacGuffin you need in it. No one would know which one was which. And at certain points along the escort, the 2 cars would interact with each other and they would swap like a shell game. And the zombies would have their own cars, which were modeled after the flesh beasts from All Mutation Madness that would be chasing the humans along these routes, in essence creating the feeling of a car chase from any spy movie.
That's super
so much fun.
Coming out of Mission 2, given how big campus is and how much people had already walked, whether willingly or unwillingly, the feeling or the vibe I had was that would either wipe the game, wipe everyone's morale because, yes, we are now making you run across campus again, or both. And so I kind of gathered whoever was available from the team at the time and said, we needed to basically rewrite the entire mission because what we had written was not going to be good for both mechanics or morale of the game.
Yeah.
And originally, like 3 or 4 people were like, nope, not happening. And we started having a discussion through it. I gave some ideas. And while it was not perfect, while it did take a little bit longer to set up, while it was still it was very off the cuff, what ended up transpiring was one of the, and mind you, at this point, I was at 30 plus hours with no sleep and like 20 some miles between Friday and Saturday. I did not have the consciousness to think through how we wanted to change it. I just knew it needed change. And so I had given some parameters of, I still want to use the cars. We had, and I think I sent a picture earlier. We had, I think it might be from the video. One of the guys from Pit Tech, one of their local members, does amazing cardboard creations. You name it, he can do it. And he did an Aston Martin as one of the cars. And I'm like, I still want to use the cars. There are people that have come to this event that have built these things. This thing looks absolutely amazing. I still want to use it. And I kind of said, here's a location on campus. I think we can make something happen. So we go out to campus, do that. And the other thing that some of my friends, some of the people on the team will state, is when I was first getting into HvZ, I absorbed everything like a sponge. And so I just have like a repository of ideas from stuff I had seen, whether it worked or not, that just exists, that can just kind of happen. And so the other thing I had stated, because at the end of the day, the humans needed to stop being run ragged across campus. So what ends up occurring is there's a section of Penn State called Petit Mall. Decent sized green space. It actually has the chain link fences as a border. And the conclusion of what ended up transpiring was the zombies had to escort the car. And all the humans had to do at the core of it was not let the car get to the other end of the green space. That's it. That is, at its simplest, what most of the players were doing during that mission. And that was kind of the criteria I gave them. And who was it? I saw Kevin, who I said did a lot of our graphics earlier. Derek.
Uh-huh.
So they were both from Pitt Tech, and Ryan, who is an RIT alum, they kind of took the idea, talked about it, and started designing the mechanics. Bryn, who is a UMBC alum, Emily Wormy, who is from UNC Charlotte and is one of the End War mods as well as Jordan, who is one of the people we've picked up from Grove City after I had graduated. The three of them kind of got into a huddle and basically handed me here is a script for the story part of this, of why this all makes sense. And then Tyler, who is still a Grove City student and is, I think, the club's current VP, handled, okay, where are we putting everyone? Where's all the stuff? I know Wormy was working on the props. The 7 of them, along with help from whoever was available at the time or whoever was not completely wiped at that point in the day, just pulled together and made that mission happen. And to hear the feedback in regards to that mission, and some of it was, wasn't necessarily polished. Some of it was like, you guys put this together in an hour and a half. We thought this was the plan the whole time. That, and I mean, I have, I think up in our chat, the video of the zombies charging with the big shields is from that mission. And if you watch it all the way through, you will see the car.
Yeah.
That just ended up being such a exciting moment for everyone. It very much, I don't want to say it saved the game, but it very much felt like it had kind of course corrected a lot of the things that were starting to discourage people at that point in the event.
It's so magical to get that kind of feedback.
That's
to
always a good feeling. Yeah.
Take a risk like that and have it pay off that way. That's great. I love that story a lot.
Yeah.
Cool.
No, that was the thing I was most proud about of the game, was just the way the team could just kind of pull together when needed.
Yeah, well-earned pride, I think. That sounds super cool. We have one more question, and it comes not from a Ko-Fi supporter, but from someone benefiting from the one other way that you can ask our podcast guest questions, which is to win the raffle, to then have our podcast guest get 2 out of 3 trivia questions correct. And the person that got the raffle from the last episode was Sam I Am Nerf, a regular around the Discord, frequent contributor. And Sam I Am asks, what is your favorite campus for games?
Oh, I have played a lot. It's scary to think that...
That's what makes you a great person to ask this question.
Yeah.
I was going to say it's scary because even though I've played a lot of campuses, compared to some of the people I go to events with, I have not played many campuses. I think the record... I personally am currently at 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 collegiate campuses and 2 that aren't.
Okay.
And I know of people that are at least in the 20s.
Oh my God.
That's
wild. Okay, so what's your favorite of the ones you've done, though?
Of the ones I've done, the favorite, which is, believe it or not, a crowd favorite, is Ohio University in Athens, Ohio.
Okay, what's so great about it?
One, it is it is very open. It's nice because it has enough tight spots that it feels like you are potentially in some close situations, but has enough open space to accommodate games small and large. One of my favorite things one of the things that makes that one stand out, and the joke was when I first started playing, was it was the Wild West of HvZ, because they had such a strong relationship with the local law enforcement, and they still do, that you are in play the whole time. So there aren't actually any game boundaries to their games.
Oh, interesting.
And so what that means, and you can actually see it in like End War footage from End War 1 and 2, is they'll send you in like a back alley off of a main street of the town, and just zombies are coming at you.
I think I've seen these videos actually, because those were some of the old first HvZ videos I saw, where they were like running almost like through town, and then they were like parking garages around and stuff like that. Yeah.
And that is one of my most played campuses besides Grove City, where I went to school. And the feeling of like rolling up to like the local Wendy's that no longer exists there, with like your pack belt on and like holding a blaster, and they just look at you and say, "It's that time of year again." You're like, "Yep." They're like, "Okay," and you go into like the back seating part, take all your gear off, set it down, and then go order your food. Is an unheard of experience. The stories that have come out of there, both big and small. One of the best hunting spots was always outside Walmart, because you're safe inside Walmart. As soon as you walk out that door, you're fair game. The stories, because that was where End War 17 and 18 were, and 800 people on a campus where you can get tagged in your hotel parking lot was wild.
I would decimate as a zombie. KT already knows if that's the case.
Oh my god.
Oh man, y'all have no idea how good of a hider I actually am. I would camp people out so badly.
I'll never forget how close that moment was when you jumped at me.
On the flip side of it, there was a story once, because their games have no boundaries. If you have attended a rules briefing and started play on campus, you can go anywhere. So there was once I heard they went for the record of the furthest tag from campus, where they like got on a plane, went to like Minnesota. One person was a human, one person was a zombie, and it counted for the game.
Oh my god.
Just playing with that kind of access. That's why you see like holds in parking garages, or just the understanding of, hey, if you are going for food, or like taking a blaster when you go for ice in the hotel, because unless you've made a truce with the people in the hotel, you gotta watch yourself, is something. And like, one of my first experiences on that campus was Luke, who is one of the mods for Survival Fest. One of my favorite people to go play games with. He has a minivan. And one of the first times we went to Athens,
to clarify for the audience, we're not talking about Out of Darts here.
Yes, not Out of Darts Luke. Too many Lukes. It's a but he has a minivan. And so one of the games we went to, we stopped because we were kind of given the heads up, hey, when you get to campus, you're going to the mod will meet you at the car, give you a safety briefing, then you're in place. So we stopped at a gas station 10 minutes outside of town to like have all the gear ready. And then rolled up, and it was like out of a movie. The door slides open, and just people in gear start filing out of the van, like ready to go, because that's just what it was.
That's so fun. That's so fun.
It is a great place to go play. The fact that their club is still hanging on after COVID and everything is miraculous. And I know there's a lot of people that are trying to convince me to put Survival Fest there next year. That's part of the whole dropping the PA out of the name.
Right.
As stated before, there is a list. There are some schools on that list. There's still talks happening. Once we have like on paper confirmation of it, everyone's gonna know. It's probably gonna be the weekend after Memorial Day, like it's been the last couple of years. That has been a pretty good weekend for us. Because we have a number of moderators that are like both college students and summer camp staff. And so trying to find the spot between when their school year ends and before their camp begins has sort of landed us in that weekend.
Okay. Well, we'll definitely be looking out for the next date announcement. You know that we wanna make sure people know about that stuff. I'm still stuck on the tactical human clown car story.
I'm
gonna be thinking about that for a while.
I'll say I don't know if that's better than the porta potty one.
Oh my god!
For once, just for the fun of it, they wanted to see how many people they could fit with their gear into a porta potty, and I think the answer was 7.
I hope they didn't lose any gear.
Yeah, just blast her in the urinal.
Yeah. Oh my god! Please no. All right. It is time. It is time. You've regaled us with some incredible tales, but it's time for us to put you up to the challenge of our increasingly notorious hobby trivia game. And if you're able to win by getting 2 out of 3 questions right, you will win an opportunity for a randomly selected raffle winner from the Discord out of the responding to the posts I make the one time generally every 2 weeks that I make at everyone on that Discord. So if you're interested in entering this raffle, be sure to join our Discord and keep an eye out for that. The winner of this raffle is Froststorm, who, funnily enough, is someone that I know in person. So congrats, Froststorm. Look out, keep listening and see if we're able to get 2 out of 3 trivia questions. Your topic, so if you wear prescription glasses like me, Mike Lacek, you may have to get LASIK surgery to enjoy the topic of these questions, because we'll be asking you about eye protection in the world of foam flinging. How much do you think you know about iPro?
Oh.
That mechanical engineering background's going to really have to shine here, isn't it?
Yeah, this is going to be an interesting one because, believe it or not, I do actually wear and own prescription glasses. So it's really funny because on one hand, I do very much care about it because I wear glasses. On the other, 9 times out of 10, when you get iPro out of the products that now have it, it's not designed for people with glasses. So it's normally just here's something to give to someone else.
Yep. So
do engineers have to go through an OSHA training, or is that only when you get to like employment?
Depends on the program. I did not have to see it until employment, but I do have OSHA 10.
Because I know OSHA's, they have like all kinds of training with eye protection, like courses and stuff. But
okay. So each of us is going to read you a trivia question. They're all multiple choice. You'll be given 3 options. We have usually a little bit of detail about the answer afterwards once we've figured out the correct answer.
Okay.
And I think Viola is going to go first, and then NotNuff will read the second question. I'll read the last one.
All right.
Are you ready then?
Yep.
Ready as you'll ever be. All right. So, ANSI or ISEA Z87.1 is the voluntary industry consensus standard for eye and face protection, i.e. the standard for impact-rated safety glasses, goggles, and face masks. The standard includes a variety of testing procedures, including a high-velocity impact test. In this test, what is the minimum velocity at which the safety glasses must survive being hit by an approximately 1 gram steel ball? Is it A, 30.5 meters per second, roughly 100 FPS, B, 45.7 meters a second, roughly 150 FPS, or is it C, it depends on the expected use case?
Could you repeat those again?
Yes, just the answers?
Yes, just the answers.
Yeah. Okay. A, 30.5 meters per second. B, 45.7 meters per second, or C, it depends on the expected use case.
And A translates to about 100 FPS. B translates to about 150.
Correct.
And you can tell us how you're logicking this out too. Let us know what you're thinking.
So
Running the numbers, I could hear it right now.
It's a mix of running the numbers and just like thinking through it, because I'm obviously the test actually does exist, because like the first thought is, does this test actually exist? Though knowing what I do know, there is like tiers to safety in anything, which is very much why there wouldn't necessarily be a blanket numerical value, period, because if you're dealing with if you're dealing with, like a shop class versus welding, obviously they're two very different things, so they need very different safety gear.
You know what? I will give you a hint here. The high velocity impact test is actually not required for the standard certification. If it passes the high velocity test, it actually gets a plus added to the Z87.1 rating. So the passing this test is an additional like click on the rating that the device receives.
Okay.
If that's a hint, I don't know.
Part of it is it takes the logic I had and it's like, no, we're gonna make you rethink everything. Oh,
I love how much thought you're putting into this, though. I really appreciate it.
It's a problem. You've got me to change my answer. I'm gonna go with A.
So why A? Just out of curiosity.
So originally I was thinking C, that it would be depending on the use case for the aforementioned different stuff need different things. The reason I have swapped to A was one, the hint, whether you talked me out of the correct answer into the correct answer. We're about to find out. What part of the reason I'm thinking A is actually ties back to FPS caps for HvZ, which is a weird train of thought, but it's really interesting that part of the reason 130 was such a popular number for a long time was because that was like the max before they were starting to have like you would start to see marks on skin.
Right.
And I know from certain discussions and RIT, which actually has the school safety committee kind of helping determine their rules, that they're capped at like 100 for everything.
Okay.
And so that's where I'm going with whatever translated to 100 FPS.
All right, Vile.
So you're gonna still stick with A then on that?
Now you've got me. Yes.
No, it's fine. Just
I
it's fine.
Want to make sure that we're clear.
Sticking with A.
Yes, I'm going to stick with A.
No, I just want to make sure we're clear. We're still sticking with A. Yeah, unfortunately, would be wrong. It's B actually.
You don't have to read. You don't have to read this whole description, Vile. So, I part of the reason that I thought this was a really interesting question is, in the actual specs for this test, they give it in meters per second, but they also give the FPS equivalent. And 100 and 150 line up so effectively with like common HvZ standards and common pro, like sort of the baseline of pro standards. You know, pro play usually kind of starts at 150 and then goes up from there.
Yep.
But it's just an interesting coincidence that it starts there. They define the meters per second that it has to be able to withstand. The other interesting coincidence, right? A half dart is usually around a gram. And we talk now about like point differences between them and the changes in but they're around a gram, and they're also testing this with a gram weight being thrust at the item, which I thought was really fascinating. But it's just a coincidence. It has nothing to do with our hobby, obviously.
Right.
But I thought that was really fascinating that the test is pretty effectively, obviously it's a different material, it behaves differently when it impacts plastic than plastic and rubber hitting it, but it is really relevant numbers to what we do.
I think it's fascinating because KT put in here the actual section for the ANSI standard that this was based off of, and it states that 150 was the projection for like eyewear, right? Like how fast it has to travel. But for standard for face shields, it's 300 FPS.
Yep.
Which is also interesting because we're talking about blasters that are hitting now almost 300 FPS, and it's just interesting to see that a lot of these numbers correlate surprisingly close to a lot of things that become standard in even our own hobby, which is just again, like KT's saying, it's fascinating how there's a lot of overlap between even just the numbers and FPS ratings and some of the safety standards that are actually out there. You know, it is fascinating because just again, I'm also, my background in welding and fabrication and stuff like that. I've seen a lot of these ANSI standards through a lot of these different things as well. So it's just surprising to see it.
And it's worth pointing out, of course, this is not a 1-to-1 correlation with what we do in our hobby. We're shooting rubber darts that have a lot of give. This is a steel ball. It just happens.
I was going to say, are we
weight.
just going to continue to ignore that we're talking about a steel ball?
It's very different, but there is, like, it's just interesting how similar those things are. But it is it is obviously very different. In reality, the test is
energy dispersion.
They have like a diagram. They have like a diagram of the or like a photograph of an apparatus for doing it. It's just like a frame, and there's like a model head, and you put the thing on it, and there's just like a thing that goes like pew. It just like shoots a steel ball at it from like 2 feet away or something. Imagine if we tested our safety goggles that way.
Oh,
maybe we should. Maybe we should.
On that slightly tangential note, there one of the fun.
Oh, everything's a tangent.
Everything's a tangent at this point. One of the things that I said, we had some people from Wisconsin down. One of the things that I had started helping with, and then because I cannot do it all, but they have continued development on the potential of an impact tester and being able to use that instead of chronographs.
That's a cool idea. I know that testing like joules on impact is like theoretically what a lot of the standards are based on, but it's just so much harder to measure consistently. So if they come up with something that could be revolutionary for the hobby in a lot of ways.
I saw a prototype at Survival Fest.
That's cool.
They compared it against some chrono numbers, and while it has some fine tuning on the electrical side, it was holding its own against chronographs, and it removes any concern about, well, you're in the wrong lighting, so it's going to read hot, or you're going to read whatever.
Right. That's so interesting. Okay. Yeah, I can't wait to see what comes from that. NotNuff, it is your turn to read the question I DM'd to you.
All right, second question. Here we go. Are you ready, Mike?
No, but that is okay.
Many foam blaster companies offer protective, air quotes, eyewear. Which of the following companies actually sells an ANSI/ISEA Z 87.1 rated eyewear product? The 3 choices available are A, Dart Zone, B, Nerf, or C, Rekt. And Rekt is spelled R-E-K-T.
Now I feel like I'm already overthinking the question. I feel like I'm just gonna go with my gut, and I know that.
Well, hold on. I know that not enough. You were asking about Rekt earlier. Are you familiar with Rekt, Mike?
I am.
Okay.
That's kind of the gut answer, is to go with Rekt, because they do the CO2 powered blasters, and so of the companies, like, I'm fairly confident I know Dart Zone's lineup. I'm fairly confident I know Nerf's lineup, just with like what they offer online. Knowing what I know about Rekt's lineup of blasters and offerings, I can almost just gut reaction, hands down, say that the answer is Rekt. C.
Is that your final answer? Well, I'll do like KT. Why are you choosing C?
So, Rekt.
I mean, that was a fair explanation.
It is a logical thing.
CO2 company. Yeah, I mean, that's kind of.
Yeah.
And I believe Rekt does offer products outside of solely dart blasters.
Yeah.
Is it pellet like gun? I don't remember exactly what Rekt does.
Well, because Rekt does CO2. They're one of the only companies that does CO2 dart blasters.
Right, but before that, was it airsoft or was it like actual like pellet guns? I don't remember.
They do pellet guns too. Like Mike said, they do like CO2 powered.
Right, yeah.
They specialize in CO2 propulsion, but now they're getting into foam projectiles. They always used to do like, I think they used to do like BB and pellet.
Yeah, that's why I was curious if they had any metal projectiles in that lineup, or if it was airsoft.
You can use that to test your eyewear to the ANSI standard.
Actually, you could if it was. That's why I mean I was just curious, because most companies, some of the ones that use CO2, will sometimes start with metal BBs or pellets like that, and then started to eventually move into rubber. So that's why I was just curious if that was part of Rekt's. So I didn't even know of the company until they started doing the Nerf offerings.
Right.
So
I think this is the first company to blend over. Umarex, I think, owns them. Umarex is like a long time. They're kind of like Crossman and Daisy was, but I don't want to get too sidetracked. Mike, so C was your final answer, Rekt?
Yep.
Okay, and you would be correct.
Yeah.
We have some details about this answer too. It says Nerf has offered eyewear stylized like sports safety equipment since 2004's Dart Tag vision gear and a variety of rival face masks. Dart Zone, on the other hand, has similarly included some kind of safety eyewear with every pro product since 2021, but none of these products are ANSI rated, and the packaging specifically states that they are not protective devices. Very, very fine print. You have to squint your eyes. Rekt actually offers a marked ANSI-rated safety glasses product screen printed with their logo direct from their website for $15. So you get what you pay for.
Their safety goggles actually look really nice. They look pretty cool, and they actually have their logo screen printed on the side, which I was really impressed by.
Yeah, I like that style, like the thick black frames.
Yeah,
really cool.
They're sweet. So go check out some Rekt. I guess free plug for Rekt safety eyewear. They were actually when I was researching this question, they were the only brand I could find that had their own branded. Which, because like you can go on Amazon, there's actually there's like a box of like 20 kid-sized ones you can get for like $10, and they're great. I use them all the time.
Now I feel like I've been living under a rock. Why isn't this company more popular? I mean, their stuff is good.
The Rekt Jury sort of had like it has a niche, like it's not the fact that you can just pull the trigger and like have a decent amount of power is really fun, but it's not like at a competitive level. So like it has its own sort of like niche, but it's also kind of, some of their stuff is sort of realistic looking enough that you can't necessarily take it to an HvZ.
Yeah, I see the AR looking stuff. Yep.
Yeah, so it's sort of like I think it's a company that has its niche, and it's it's never going to have sort of it the product line that they have now is not going to have sort of the mainstream.
Probably would have to be a game designed around everybody having one of these units, and then
Maybe,
rules, obviously. Yeah.
I think some clubs have also banned a lot of just CO2 or gas powered stuff in
Yeah.
the first place. So that's
also
from what
true.
I understand.
That's also
Yeah.
I wonder what FPS they get. I mean, I got such a surplus of CO2 cartridges.
There's a
So
lot
tempting.
of there's a bunch of reviews of the Jury out there. When it came out, it was a really big conversation point. So I don't remember.
I think I've
off
seen
the top
that
of
one
my
in
head,
some
though.
reviews. That's the revolver looking one, right?
Yep.
Yeah, correct.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay. So
Cool.
I am ready to read you your final trivia question. You are now 1 and 2, so you can still win this.
Yep.
How you feel? Ready?
Right. I'm intrigued.
All right. Well, let's go.
1 for 1. This is a tiebreaker.
Which of the following hobby event rulebooks specify impact rated, ANSI impact rated protective eyewear? A. Maryland Foam Tournament. B. Foam Pro Tour. Or C. Survival Fest. I don't know if you know anything about the Survival Fest rulebook, if you've maybe looked at that.
I mean, it's like 30 pages, and it was like 50 hours of discussion. When I wrote this question, I had a feeling that was the case. Our player handbook is both amazing and it is like greatest strength and biggest weakness.
I mean, that's one of the tough things about writing rule books for these events. So we were talking about New England Extreme Dart. I actually wrote their rule book, and it's intentionally a very thin document because their event is very focused on a specific game type, and there's really nothing else that has to go in there other than the safety rules and the sportsmanship rules and things like that. So, but the thing that you're always trying to balance is, like, we want people to be able to read all of this and absorb the information, but also we need to make sure that all the situations are covered so that if we do have a bad actor, we have the specific text that we can draw on. And so it's easy for the books to get like bloated. I feel your pain is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah.
Anyway.
I'm like fairly confident it's not Survival Fest.
Okay.
Like fairly confident. I am right now leaning towards the Maryland Foam Tournament. Just the gut reaction.
Mm-hmm.
Because I have looked at the F Foam Pro Tour rules for this year, and I know for a fact that I don't think they had iPro listed, or if they did, it wasn't necessarily that extreme.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm also like second guessing myself. Oh.
What if you just went with your gut on this one, Mike?
Yeah, I'm gonna say Maryland. It's gonna be the one that guaranteeably is gonna be. You need to have the impact rated because it is going to be high FPS.
Well, and they've done such a great job with their rule book, and congratulations, you are 100% correct.
All right.
Maryland Foam Tournament is the one rule book that does specify having ANSI rated, impact rated eyewear. And In fact, a lot of our hobby events, regardless of FPS cap, let you wear normal prescription glasses on the field currently. And I think for the first time, I might be using the trivia game to try to make a point, which is I don't think it should be that way. I think particularly if we're in a competitive setting, I think that we should have a higher standard for our protective eyewear.
So I will state, in the case of Survival Fest,
well, you're in HvZ and you have a much lower cap. I put that in there to be cheeky. I don't think your event necessarily needs to. But maybe you could.
I believe we actually still require
you do require iPro.
I was gonna say, I know we require iPro. I was just trying to remember if we stated, and because I know we answered it in the Q&A that someone asked if regular glasses would count, and I believe we said no.
Right.
For Survival Fest.
I should have put the actual text from each of the handbooks. On the thing. But yeah, it's it's funny because it's one of those things. Is like, I think we all know, and I actually am probably going to go back, and now that I've done all this research, I'm probably going to go back to the Need handbook and add that. But it's tough also, because if you do wear prescription glasses, you have to actually buy a special product most of the time. You can get goggles that go over most pairs of glasses that are rated, but those can really be a pain when you're trying to play a sport.
So at least for the HvZ end, because my preferred glasses when I play, especially HvZ, are where are they? Because they're the same ones I use for work, so it makes life easy. They are. See if I can pull a brand off of this. Unfortunately, I can't.
At one point, there are a couple places. Sometimes when you order. If you're ordering glasses from the online places, which my glasses are Zenny glasses, they actually offer with some frames. They actually offer an anti-rated setup for them, which is wild. Obviously, not every pair of frames is capable of doing that.
Yeah.
Because part of the rating is based on the ability of the lenses to actually pop out of the frames, which not every frame can promise that, but some can, which is kind of wild. I'm looking at the 2024 handbook for Survival Fest, and under required gear and equipment, it just says eye protection.
Yeah. So I noted that. I'm like, oh, this will be a note for later.
And it's funny because it's funny in the context of this because a lot of the other items have little footnotes attached to them. See here for more information, but eye protection does not.
I would say anyway. I think we had answered and basically said, because we did discuss if regular glasses would count, and I'm fairly confident we had said no. Because of different things. In fact, I was at a game 2 weeks before Survival Fest playing, and it was one of the ones that would require just any kind of glasses. And I took a pot shot, and someone had those magnetic sunglasses on their regular glasses.
Oh my god.
And I somehow hit it to the point that you watch the dart hit and you watch the sunglasses pop off.
Oh my god. What are the chances?
But
that's so funny.
But my preferred over the glass safety glasses is they're $10-15 on Amazon, and you can even sometimes find them in a tinted version for sunglasses.
Oh, that's cool.
So
I have a pair of prescription safety glasses, but I'd have to get another one if I wanted some that were sunglasses as well. Again, you can get stuff like that off Zenny. It's relatively cheap if you have a prescription. Anyway, congratulations, Froststorm. I will be in touch with you about asking a question of our next podcast guest. We're gonna have Silly Butts on next time, a returning podcast guest. But this time they'll be playing the trivia game, and someone else will get a chance to ask a question potentially after that. All right, we're running really long, but honestly, this conversation has been so amazing. I've not heard about it at all, but I definitely want to make sure we make time to talk about a few other things. There have been some really significant shifts in the major brand blaster market lately. One of the biggest ones is the N1 dart, and this has been the number one topic. And there was a part of me that like didn't want to talk about it on the podcast because it's just so heavily talked about right now, but it is a really big deal. We're so tied into the 50 cal standard, the 50 caliber standard, which elites initiated, streamlines elites and half-length darts now. And this new standard doesn't match any of the existing standards that we have, but by all reports, at play levels, at like 100 and sub 100 FPS numbers, it does perform better than the 50 cal darts that we have currently. Nerf is fully going in on this dart. They're ending the full-length Elite dart completely in their product lines. A lot of people are calling this an anti-consumer move, because they're breaking compatibility with existing products. There's a lot of debate, and I want all of your thoughts on it. Who wants to go first? Because I know y'all got thoughts.
I've got a lot because I've got them in hand. I've got them in hand, and I've been looking into a lot of what people have talked about, what people have broken open. There's discussions going on in the Discord, even while we're recording this. Yeah. Like, there's a lot going on, and we saw, Anthony put up for Maritime Foam, put up his recap of going to HQ and some of the questions that they had while they were there. It was interesting that we heard one about the blasters no longer having slam fire because of noise restrictions, like regulations around the decibels that these blasters put out, and that prevented them from being able to actually release them in certain countries. So they removed slam fire, but additionally that also contributed to the dart design, which is interesting. I'm curious about that, the actual conversation, like what do you mean by the dart design? Is it how it's flying? Is it how it impacts? Is it how, like, there's so many different ways of like, where are you measuring noise from? But that is an interesting concept. The other thing is we have obviously the new nub on the back, like we talked about with the Ultra. That's now a new thing. So it completely changes out how darts, press down the AR, pieces that like in the actual AR systems. And that takes compatibility out. I myself am going to already see if I can fix that and make it to where it can take any dart, because the first thing I wanted to do was cut these darts down and see if we cut that little nub off and we cut a little bit off the back end of the dart, how's it going to perform? What happens when we put power behind it? What happens? And there are already people, and like I said, the discussion's already going off even in our own Discord about this, who are already testing higher powered systems behind this. We have found now, even though it's not a 50 cal standard, these darts, I actually have brass on order because I had a theory that this was going to work, and it was confirmed by Radioactive that 1930 brass works beautifully as barrel material. You can also use 15 millimeter inner diameter aluminum tube. And somebody has already tested one in a Nexus Pro. There's already a conversion for to run these in a Nexus Pro. So people have already started running these at high power. There is a lot already happening. I mean, it hasn't even barely been a few days that people have received these, and there's already this much going on. There is a lot. And I think too many people were, personally, like from what I've seen from the discussions and everybody being mad or frustrated, I think there is a lot of people already trying to just disregard, push aside, really kind of hate on it from the moment. I think it's like Ultra. When Ultra came out, people were interested and they started testing and they did a lot with the dart. And then we found out, oh, it's actually really not that good, mostly due to inconsistencies with like how the head was glued on and, you know, some other issues. But there were some people, that, all of like 3 of them, but there was a few people that did put some time into it and said, oh no, if you put a little bit of extra power behind these Ultra darts, they're actually phenomenal. And especially when they made the AccuStrike line of it, you know, and so there is something there. I know that a lot of people are mad because it's not going along with other darts. And at the end of the day, it is a company that is making most of its money on its dart sales. If Vortex didn't take off, if Mega didn't take off, if, you know, Hyper didn't take off, if Rival's still a pretty good one, and they're still making stuff for it, obviously, but when you start looking at all these dart types, that's where Hasbro's going to make its money. It is going to be a smart move for a business to try to make a new dart that is only used for them, while everybody else has invested heavily into putting half darts onto the shelves and putting, you know, different style full lengths on that do perform better. Obviously, everybody says, oh, get waffles, get whatever. I think this is going to be a big one for them because they needed to somehow, like, how could they change this dart now? The 50 cal has been exponentially expanded on to a point that it's so perfect, and so many other companies already have their own versions and variants. They can no longer really compete with that. And it's going to be losing them a lot. And if it loses them a lot, it starts to suffer for the brand as a whole. So it's sort of like, as crappy as it is to have a whole nother dart type, I see it, at least on the business side of things, like, well, they have to do something to sort of stand out again. And if the dart is, and as fascinating as it is, the fact that it runs perfectly in a 1930 seconds piece of brass is also kind of interesting. Why did they choose that one? Why did they choose that size? Why does that size work really good for a lot of our applications? Hey, maybe that's still well, give them something so the modders might have something. Because we do know that there are engineers, and a lot of those people who work at building and making and manufacturing this stuff sometimes keep an eye on our side of the hobby, as small as we may be.
That would be such an incredible, such a baller move if some engineer had been told, like, all right, we need a new diameter to sort of like break what all the modders are doing, and they just picked a diameter that fits a different brass size.
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be standardized, but we saw things with like the Knockout. Why did the Knockout have a breech opening that was perfect for a half dart? Why did the slide on the barrel, all you had to do was cut 2 tabs and it could slide open enough for you to put a half dart in it? That's a pretty surprising stuff. Why? There are always little nods, and sometimes they're changes that the company made, or it could be FPS changes or whatever. But there's always really interesting things that seem to be left in a lot of these blasters that seem to really make it sort of open for us to find. And it's fascinating, right? You could call it luck, you could call it coincidence, whatever it is. There are always interesting things in blasters that are there for us to tinker with, or to expand on, or say, oh, what if I just remove this one little part and all of a sudden the thing's amazing? You know, there's a ton of little stuff available. And I think the first initial response was going to be negative, and it's understandable because you're having to talk about a whole nother dart type. You're having to talk about compatibility issues. You're having to talk about this stuff. Again, with compatibility, Radioactive actually found out that these darts fit in full-length mags. That is actually a video that popped up, and it's surprising, like, wait a minute, these still fit in our current full-length mags.
Well, because those mags have extra space.
Right, they do have space side to side. And I think it wasn't like a Nerf branded one, and he unfortunately didn't get a chance to test a Nerf branded. I think it was the one for the Zuru long shot, I think. Or the X-Shot long shot, you know, the whatever mag came with that. But still, that shows that there's an option, and you could just rebarrel. Obviously, somebody's already made a rebarreled breech and stuff for a Nexus Pro. So we could just expand upon it. Maybe it becomes one that we like. and maybe not. Maybe it's one that we hate.
So
because maybe it's terrible.
even with all of this though, one of the downsides is what people keep calling Dart DRM, the necessity of the little nub on the back. I wonder if anyone else has thoughts on these claims that the design of this Dart and the release of it and the breaking compatibility is anti-consumer, is a move against the interests of users.
So
I also got him in. Go ahead, Mike.
So I'm gonna state I have not had a chance to see these in person. There are a lot of different facets that make up our community, a bunch of different roles that people play. From an organizer standpoint, because I've had some of those discussions with people, it sounds like they aren't happy with it. It is now hey, if you want to get the kids something to add to their collection for Christmas, don't get them this because it won't work with their other stuff. And it hasn't been communicated if it did or did not. And in that regard, that's rough. From a like family consumer standpoint, I would actually agree to an extent that the lack of compatibility has led to some frustration there. At the same time, if you think about any other products that exist, they're meant to be improved and iterated on. The fact that the biggest improvement anyone has had in the past decade was just cut them in half, it feels like there should be more development since then. And the other thing, and I forget which video had it, that the standard FPS has been increased by 20 from a Nerf product. We were always expecting like the Elite line would be 70 FPS out of the box. It became so common it was like almost a joke at one point. And I forget which review it was said that the N series is 90 out of the box. And I really wanted to see this be very, very good. I still think it has potential to be very, very good. Because like coming from like an HvZ perspective, half lengths are great. They make carrying easy. I know we had talked a little bit, I believe, before the show about just how popular they're showing up now. At the same time, I have seen a lot of people that play HvZ still stick to full lengths because, and I mean, I've bounced between the two. Sometimes just because it's funny. There was a school that was running their first invite, and it's like, oh, we're going to run full length just to kind of, fit in with the vibe of this is the first time people are doing things. And there is a significant difference between the half lengths and the full lengths in terms of performance at lower speeds. Now, I don't have any numbers off the top of my head. I know that friends of mine are looking into potentially testing that and even testing different, because especially from flywheels, the difference between, a full-size wheel versus one of the micro wheels, what kind of lines need to be drawn, what kind of performance can be done on the ammo we have already. And so I see the N series as a potential development and improvement. I mean, you're now getting at 90 FPS, which it's been mentioned there are some HvZ games that cap at 100, 110. Having something at 90 FPS that can actually outperform Elite, that you don't necessarily have to mess with too much, feels like it should have a place.
Yeah. I think it's one of those things where time and the community sort of getting their hands on it is really what's going to determine its place if it has one, right, at all. Because again, and even against the argument you said about parents sometimes doing it, I did hear parents who were buying Ultra or Mega for their kids, not realizing that those darts don't work with all of their other ones that took Elites. And it's just interesting. It's always going to be that, and that's unfortunate. And that's what KT's channel was really good with for a while there, when KT was doing the shorts about like a quick 1-minute review thing, mostly targeted to the parents, trying to educate them about what they're getting for their kids and like why. Like that's where that's kind of something like that is good for parents who just don't know because they're just getting their kids a toy. But yeah, I think the community needs to just put it through its paces before we really make a final judgment on it.
So for me, like you guys know me from the get-go, I've always been a long dart guy. I like the long darts. I like the long dart play. I was talking to a member from Atlanta Blaster League the other day. I was telling her there's something about the long darts that it's kind of like projectile feedback or emotional response that you get from just a bigger projectile flying through the air from your muzzle versus, the higher FPS competitive style gameplay that you get with half darts. It's a completely different, in my experience, is a completely different feel.
That's why I like Mega. I'll say it right there.
Right. So this is going to sound a little weird coming from me because at the same time, you'd expect me to completely adore this new dart. I have them in my hands too, by the way, right now. And as a matter of fact, Val, you made me go grab a piece of 1932 I had laying around. And I can confirm, this is a 7.5-inch piece, and I was able to just blow a gun right through with the dart. So
yeah,
pretty good pressure. So a couple things. One thing I like about the dart, I guess I like a few things about them more than I expected, but one thing I do like about them is that the foam part of the body diameter, the actual foam section, is wider than the rubber tip. You guys remember when the chilies and the waffles came out roughly around the same time? People used to favor the chilies over the waffles because the chilies had an ever so slightly smaller diameter rubber head than the body. So they were a little bit more, they were that much better for sealed breeches and barrels. Yep. You guys remember that? So this dart here inherently has a narrower head than a body. And I think that can really pay dividends when all these people start developing in the 3D print community and in the injection molded retail community, like start coming out with these designs for sealed breeches and barrels. That's all working on, in its favor, I guess. But the nub in the back, that's what puts the signature on it, that it's strictly for Hasbro products. That nub in the back. That's probably going to be the part where it's going to be hard for a lot of companies to try to mimic. Obviously, once the Elite came out and the embargo or the patents or whatever lifted, everybody started making Elite clones, legal or non-legal. So it's only a matter of time before people start. It all depends on whether this line takes off product-wise, sales-wise.
Yeah.
If it does take off, obviously the aftermarket will come in spades trying to mimic this dart, clone it or whatever. And then we'll start seeing a little bit more of, like a normalcy in this kind of ammo type. But until then, guys, we're still in the green stages of this. What are we, like a week into the first releases on the shelves of Walmart?
Barely.
But I could tell you one thing, though. It's a very popular topic.
Oh, yeah,
everybody wants to know what's going on with the new Nerf product. I put out 2 videos that were pretty much just me, a grown-ass man complaining about toy guns. And those are probably my best performing videos since I started this channel 2 years ago. That tells you right away. And the 2 videos start with the word N series. So that right there shocked me because I was like, what is going on? I had to look into it. I was like, what is going on with the N series? Why are so many people invested into knowing what's happening with N series? I've never seen anything like this. Of course, I wasn't around by the time Gear Up and Elite XD. I mean, Vile, you and KT could probably testament to that. I've never seen this crazy amount of buzz for a new line. It's insane.
From the conversations I have seen through multiple Discords, there has been a lot of people, especially within the hobby, that have been a bit salty about it. They're salty that they think that it's like, you'll hear all the coin terms of Hasbro and Nerf is dead and all of this stuff.
So most of it is discontent?
A lot of it is, but I think, again, this is what I mean about it's a lot of people sort of throwing in the towel before they've even started, before they've tried it, before anybody has really given it a shake. Everybody's already done that because there's been a lot of and you know, there's other content creators that have started talking about this, and it was very similar to be sort of angry at it. There's a bit of an angry reaction to a lot of it before even getting one in hand. And then when you see a lot of people like, you know, Anthony and Drac and all the other content creators that had gone up to Nerf HQ, and they were all kind of interested and fascinated by it because they were able to get sort of the inside information. They were able to ask questions. They were able to handle the stuff right away. And they're a little bit different. And I think they're a little bit more cautious on it because they're like, let's at least give it a try before we really start becoming super angry with it. And the other argument I've seen is people wanting so badly for why don't you just offer a 300 FPS blaster for $20? And it's like, because again, there needs to be, where's the HvZ crowd? Where are blasters for them? Where is the stuff for kids? Where's the stuff for people who are under the age of 12? Where is that? That is what Nerf has been known for. They need to have a product that really fills that niche. They're not going to go out and make 200, 300, 400 FPS blasters. That's not their clientele at the end of the day. We are a very small portion of that. And some people do get mad that you even bring up that point. And it's like, but you still have to have that. And if you keep saying, well, X shot this or Dart Zone that, and it's like, yes, a Villainator can get 100 FPS right out of the box, and you can buy it off of a Walmart shelf. At the same time, I'm not going to give a 100 FPS blaster to a 7-year-old. I'm going to give them something that shoots a little bit less. It's okay if it doesn't hit the target perfectly. It's okay. They can grow into these blasters and then start seeing channels of people who mod or people who talk about mods, or they find this hobby and start realizing that, oh, this blaster that I grew up with that I really loved, what if I crack it open and I start trying to do stuff to it? You have to kind of give, that door has to be opened for a younger audience. And I think too many people who have been in this hobby for too long expect too much out of really the simplest of things.
Yeah, the FPS people are always going to exist. They're always going to be those people that are like not enough power or whatever.
Yeah, I think that is the unfortunate reality. And we unfortunately are at a point right now, we're seeing a whole change, right? Nerf is really, and Hasbro is kind of flipping it over on its head, getting rid of its you know, extremely long running dart type and standardized dart type.
Well, they no longer have control over it. I think that's a big part of this move for them as a business perspective. From a business perspective, I think we are lucky to some degree. You're never going to catch me like defending corporatism, but I do think we're lucky to some degree that when they decided to break their long-running standard, they did it in a way that seems to have actual benefits, like mechanical benefits over the existing ammo type. The thing that I am most interested in with this new dart, and I'm very curious to see what happens when we start, like with the Ultra Dart, putting a lot of power behind it, seeing what it does. I am curious to see, does it work better at play numbers than the Elite Dart does, which is not hard to do, because the Elite Dart was garbage. And I think they were stuck in a position where the shape and the form of the Elite Dart was such an iconic part of their brand that they couldn't improve that dart without breaking the look of it, because the head is part of the problem, right? And other companies have figured out how to improve upon that while still keeping compatibility. And if they followed a dart zone with making a waffle type dart head that performed better, they're ceding control psychologically of that dart type by following one of the other brands.
Yeah,
and so
like
I think for them, their only move was to move to a completely new paradigm.
However, I am going to offer a slight pushback on that, because in their particular case, all they had to do is revert to one particular design, which they actually did, but it was short-lived, the Strife X Pro. That AccuStrike tip, it did marvels for them when it came out. Everybody that I know is wondering, why did Hasbro not only stop making AccuStrike blasters, but the darts? That was the one thing that they did that, like you say, broke the mold without breaking the mold.
I'd be really curious to know what the sales numbers looked like on AccuStrike darts, because, again, the hobby knew that they were functionally better darts. But how many people went to go buy darts and saw the marked up price and saw that they didn't recognize what the dart looked like and just bought Elite darts anyway?
The other thing I will interject at this juncture is, and someone correct me if I'm wrong, I thought I read somewhere we are still getting more Pro Series blasters that will still have 50 cal darts on it for half lengths.
We have not, the words, the specific words stating that the Pro blasters are 50 cal darts have not been said. However, they did specifically say the new Pro blasters, they won't be continuing with the half AccuStrike specifically, but it is insinuated that the Pro line will keep its compatibility with the half dart ecosystem. They're releasing a pack of the mags. They're continuing to make those magazines. Presumably, they're going to be compatible with the other Pro blasters going forward. So it is all but confirmed, I would say, that the new Pro blasters are going to have a different style of half dart that Nerf has not yet announced. But they are sticking with that standard.
They have leaked that they're putting out a mag pack.
We got a leak of the mag pack, which is going to be in where, again, for the audience, we are in that nether region between us knowing what's going to be in the episode and the episode being out. Yes, we have a leak on a mag pack. Well, they already released a mag pack, but there's a leak on another one, and there's also 2 new blasters coming out.
I know about the blasters, and I know about the existing mag pack because it serves as a replenishment for their existing Strife X Pro. I just didn't know if they have like a forthcoming mag pack that would kind of seal the deal. But
if
it's still kind of a big question mark, that's going to be interesting.
So I mean, like, it seems like Nerf is drawing a pretty clear line that, like, this is our Pro line, and the Pro line sticks with this dart, and this is everything else, and everything else is going to be the N1 dart.
I mean, at this point, if from a corporate, like you said, like, we don't favor corporatism, but if I was Hasbro, at this point, I just scorched earth everything. I do the N1 series, the P1 series, and the P1 would be half of the N1, and done. Like, these darts right here, they're actually not bad. I've always been a fan of 2/3 length, 3/4 length darts. These are 60 millimeters. So it's like a sweet spot between our current half-length dart and the old 70 mil. So it's like right there.
I'm going to give you another one here, though, for that real quick.
They fly really good. What's up?
So with some of the testing that I've been reading on this, Dead Man's Foam in our Discord was, I asked him and I requested cut off the whole back end where that little nub is at for his Nexus. He cut it down to 45 millimeters and says that it's actually really good performance. But with that nub on it, for some reason, it veers upwards almost like a rival with too much backspin. So I got something for you to test.
And that's coming out of a smooth bore?
It's a larger one. It's the 15 millimeter aluminum, but it's a test for you since you've got the right brass. Cut off that little tip there, and if you got something that's a little high power to put it on, tell me what you get, because I'm curious. I'm trying to put this test out for everybody, and since you've got all this stuff, I want you to try it as like a little thing for me here.
Yeah, like I literally just finished not reviewing, but I self-tested. I made a video on my experience, which has nothing to do with the review, but I think it's called the Wielder, which is basically the bolt action. I just found out that it was called the Wielder because the packaging is called the Gear Up pack, and all the blasters, all on the packaging. There's no nomenclature of the blasters in the pack. You have to go to the Walmarts.
That was really bugging me.
You have to go to the Walmart's description to know the name of the blasters. I'm like, that is extremely bizarre.
Yeah.
But anyway, getting back to the wielder, it's a bolt action agility with a cylinder that's been cut down to a capacity of 4, which is they have to actually spend more plastic at the press to make this to give you less darts. That was my main complaint. So, but it's basically an agility bolt action. It fires. I have to say, it put a smile on my face. I know there's people that are probably cringing when they listen to this, especially me, the biggest critic of this line, probably because I'm just so set in my ways about this other stuff. But it actually put a smile on my face. I enjoyed firing it. It was really nice. And of course, you'll watch my video and be like, "Is this the same guy we had on the podcast last night?" But I swear to you, it was fun shooting it. There's obviously like a million cons, but there was some pros in there as well. So,
this is gonna get doubled back too. So, talking about higher performance things as well. So the one of the other big sea change things that popped up recently is the Siren line of blasters. This has gotten increasingly interesting. But really briefly, before we dig into any of the things going on with that line, these blasters are promising numbers approaching 300 FPS. Their prices are lower than we have ever encountered for this kind of performance. And I'm curious about, we talked about this a little bit the last episode. I'm specifically curious on Mike's input on how do you feel as an organizer knowing that things like this exist that are so easily accessible, with people who may not understand the implication, because we already have this situation with like the X-Shot long shot, which shoots, or the Nexus Pro X, which both shoot well over the caps for for HvZs or for some casual games. To have something like this out there that costs like $40, what does that mean for our market? Do we think other companies are going to try to copy this sort of setup?
So, I think we're gonna see one of two things. I do think we will see copies, but I think it is not gonna be as bountiful as people may expect, because if you go into Walmart nowadays, you can find Dart Zone Nerf products in one of two sections. Actually, there's the stuff in the toy section, and there is stuff in sporting goods. Most commonly, you'll find all your gel blasters in sporting goods. But to my current understanding, there is a fine line to toe between whether your product ends up in toys or sporting goods. And so that at least gives us a very little buffer if people take it too far. I know to some degree and that's one of the things I'm kind of interested to see is when we got the Nexus out the first time, that started to push a lot of local clubs to go from a 130 cap to a 150 cap, because we don't want to isolate people that just picked it up off of like Walmart shelves. And for your casual Park Wars, your PvP stuff, that's perfectly fine. Part of the reason HvZ has always operated on a lower cap is due to the fact that you are almost guaranteeing all the engagement to be like 10 feet or less. And so you're already putting that very small distance on it. What we've done specifically in like Survival Fest's case is we have stated that when you go to chrono a blaster, it must be tested in the configuration you intend to use. And that word choice is done very deliberately because of Dart Zone. because what anyone that's picked up anything recently will say, the original Nexus, the long shot, I forget who makes the new long shot.
X shot.
Yes, X shot. Thank you. There's a lot of very easily changeable things that can happen on those that can heavily modify its performance. Things
I mean, you can just go from full lengths to half lengths.
Yeah.
And that changes the performance.
Which is why the wording has been stated, the configuration you intend to use it includes whatever ammo you intend to use it with.
Right. Yeah, a lot of the competitive games have those same rules. I think that's really important.
I do not ever think we will see a 300 FPS product in the toy section in a physical store. I mean, if you've noticed, I don't think there is a single proper pro blaster from Dart Zone that, because like they have the Max line, and that was all of their target stuff.
Yep.
They had, I forget what their Walmart line was for the longest.
Adventure Force Pro, I think.
Yeah, Adventure Force Pro. That's what they're just calling it.
Yeah, but the Dart Zone Pro, like the proper Mark 1, Mark
Pro
2,
tournament. Yeah.
the tournament stuff, never physically existed on store shelves.
It's not on shelves. You're right.
And so,
I mean, I wonder if we're going to start to see things like that in that sporting goods section. I feel like that time is coming at some point. But you know, when you're concerned about the configuration thing, it's already challenging to police. And I really, what's the Siren, the long blaster that
Mauler?
has the Mauler has a feature that is literally a lever that'll go. I think it's from like 300 down to like 150, depending on where you position the lever. In terms of its power setting, and it's challenging to, I think it's potentially challenging to police something that's that easy to change that drastically in a chaotic game setting.
So a lot of it comes down to moderator discretion, because easy change in chaotic game setting is not necessarily anything new to the community at large, to people that have been around for a while. And that's even like at Survival Fest, there were reports of someone potentially hitting too hot, having an available hand to just kind of yoink that person out of play, apologize for it, but can we go re-chronograph your blaster? And that is something that has been, like, that is part of the rule set of, we, at our discretion, have the right to potentially do that if there is any belief that you have changed something. The Caliburn, one of the oldest platforms around, it's about as easy to spring swap a Caliburn to something higher as it is a Nexus Pro. And so the concept of that happening is not necessarily new. Is it a little bit harder now because there are so many different things that you can do that with? Yes, 100%. I remember talking with someone who brought up just ban anything that can be adjusted, and I'm like, that list has gotten so long now that
and how do you even define that? Is changing a spring an adjustment? Is moving a lever an adjustment? Is tightening a knob an adjustment?
Brushless setups that are a little menu that you can go in and change your
or even just what's the worker one that just has the knob on the front?
Oh, that was for rate of fire though, not for there was the Phoenix 2.0 did have it though, where you could change the like power rating
onboard PWM, but that's for the fire rate.
So
yeah.
With brushless, I think most of them have developed some sort of locking mechanism.
Right.
How
Yeah.
easy it is to access and how easy it is to implement is widely varying.
I really loved, actually, not enough. You should talk for a second about the situation that Paper Skeletons built, because I loved that thing where you could set your power level, and then the team at the HvZ can put their own zip tie over the control panel, and then it's very clear if you've cut it open to change it, and you'd have to go back and get it.
As a matter of fact, that was going to be my Sunday video, but I would love to talk about it briefly. So,
well, guess what? This comes out on Saturday and Sunday, so no spoilers.
So Paper Skeletons, he developed, basically it's not much to it. He just designed a 3D print shell for it, but it's an encasing where you have a PWM module. It's basically just a little module that sits in a plastic, a nice little box with a little adjustable knob on it. And you can plug your 3S LiPo directly into that. And then it has a wire that connects from that to your blaster on a port on your blaster. And then you basically just regulate the voltage, resulting in different FPS. It works mainly with brushed blasters, because brushless, they have their own little Arduino computer setup, which you can obviously adjust your FPS with that. But the PWM is a game changer. I mean, I was able to enter the competition with the blaster that I brought because he brought that for me. I didn't have any other batteries that worked with my blaster, and I was able to use my blaster for HvZ. I tuned it down right to, I think, right 110 FPS is what I was hitting. And then he designed the box in a way that there's a little latch that two loops overlap, and you could stick a zip tie. Once you set the FPS, you stick a zip tie, and you could show the judge or the referee right there that you zip tied it, done. And they were so happy with that. They were like, "Oh my gosh, can we mass create these for everybody here?" Like, they were really happy with that.
I want to see
because obviously there's the outliers. Yeah, I'm excited to do the video on it. There's always the outlier people that have a little switch, a little kill switch somewhere that they flip, and then all their FPS is back. I was getting hit honestly by some things that stung pretty bad at Maryland, but I didn't say nothing. I don't want to be that guy, but I know there's people out there that do that. It's always going to be a challenge trying to regulate that.
I know my primary at Maryland was the Jin from Detroit Dartworks and Talon-Axe and those guys.
Yeah, the collab blaster.
Yeah, they actually have, it's really nice because they have a physical adjustment knob, and by clicking the knob in is how you cycle your fire settings. And so what they actually did was designed a knob that screws onto the mechanical knob that prevents you from being able to twist, but you can still press it in like a button.
Oh, that's clever. And
so it's like a quick, simple little thing. Obviously, it is easy to pull that off and make the adjustments and stick it back on and claim. I am also, to an extent, of the belief that if you... Now, this is coming from... I was around when like the FDL3 first came out, of the mindset of if you were putting the money into a brushless build of that caliber, you are not intentionally trying to cause problems.
Well, and ultimately that's a Rule 0 violation, right?
Yeah.
If you're doing any of that stuff, like, get out of here. I think related to this, one of the other big changes that we're starting to see is the bigger brands having a higher power battery used to be the domain of dealing with LiPos, and we're starting to see more. Dart Zone has been doing this for a minute. The Venom is going to have a battery system that's similar to what the Strife X and the Omnia before it have had, where it's all kind of encased with its own safety equipment. It sounds like the Siren Blink is also going to have a similar setup. And I feel like this is just kind of a good thing. Pretty straight up, right? Like, it lowers the barrier to entry in terms of like complexity and just like the concern of the charging process. Like those of us that have charged LiPos a million times, like we're comfortable with it. We're fine with it. We don't have a problem with it. But there's a psychological barrier to entry with the potential for danger for that, and I think that this lowers that a lot. And I don't think there's really any downsides to that, and it might make some of that technology more available to the hobby side over time.
Yeah, I mean, PWMs have always existed, but the fact that we can put it into a package, into a kit, where you could just, it's not even a BOM, like a bill of materials, it's a kit. So, and it comes either fully assembled or, if you enjoy assembling things, if you're a big Lego fan, you like building things, we send it to you as a kit where you just assemble it yourself. And it's actually, when you really think about it, it's pennies on the dollar what it would cost versus a manufacturer having to incorporate that into a blaster. Like the reason the Worker Phoenix 2.0 is so expensive by most standards for a brushed blaster is because incorporating a PWM into a blaster is just extra manufacturing work. You have to, put a place on your shelf for that. You have to set up the knob, program whatever little circuit is going to work with the other circuit. And it's, it's extra time for them. But for us, it's literally plug and play.
Right.
So I really enjoyed it. Everybody's like, oh, your nailer looks like a real industrial nailer now because it's got like the little nomadic cable on it.
Right,
the little coily cable on it.
Yeah,
I love what Paper Skeletons did. So I can't wait to show you guys.
I was gonna say, I remember seeing the plug and play kits at Maryland Mayhem because I think we were like right next to you for it, and
weren't you Mike? Weren't you the guy at the booth that had those two brushless blasters and then the PA Survival Fest stuff all over the place?
Yeah, that was the
they had the
gins, right?
at the table.
Okay, man, it was funny. I enjoyed watching the videos of you like acting.
Yep.
Was that you? That was you, right?
Yep. I was gonna say you saw a lot of me acting for like the theme announcement.
This guy's a good actor, man. I didn't know engineers could be such good actors.
I think in another world I would have been a theater person.
Absolutely.
I would say for some of the like ad lib cutscenes and stuff we had in the briefing room for Survival Fest, I know there is video of it. Because one of the fun mechanics that got used was because it's a spy game, we found a way to incorporate the concept of, if you've ever heard of Get Down, Mr. President, like the game that kids will play. We found a way to incorporate that into the game. Which led to the concept of zombies now have centurions, and you need to protect and escort someone to a meeting.
Oh my god!
Great time. But the plug and play kit actually was part of the inspiration. One of our sponsors for this year was Containment Crew, and they had given us some stuff to raffle off, and we had like it wasn't a complete plug and play, but kind of like a Nightingale kit in that same vein of blaster, mag, darts. Literally all you were missing was a battery and charger, and you were good to go. And part of what I love about, especially with like the Venom, I am so excited for the Venom. If it works a little bit better and we find it has like mag compatibility with the Nightingale, I'm going to be so excited. Because I am the kind of person that I'm working towards having like what I'm calling like a grab and go HvZ setup, which is very much a last minute. I want to try and do like a 2-hour drive somewhere and go play a game, and I can just grab a box that just has everything I need for like, sure, it's maybe not the whole regalia that I may have in an event.
But it's complete. You can rely on it.
Exactly. And so having stuff with batteries already accounted for,
right,
and ideally chargers, is just kind of you mean I don't have to think about this stuff, of just wonderfulness that I absolutely adore.
That's great. Okay. So that was a lot of the hobby's changing a lot right now. So much, and I really appreciate hearing all of your opinions on those things.
Yeah, we're in the middle of a supernova of a pivot stage in the hobby.
Oh, big
on
time.
both.
True.
I think on
I
the
really
both the
think that's true.
manufacturer side and
Yes.
all these I think I keep saying this to all my friends, but I think Nerf has been for a while tracking on becoming one of the big three. Like obviously, it was always the smaller third behind airsoft and paintball, but I think now it's making just bold moves. It feels like every day it just becomes that much more popular and that much more mainstream, to the point where I think eventually it's going to overcome and overtake these other two. Local clubs, like this past weekend, I was at a local club that I just discovered, and I was so happy to. And the guy that runs it, he's ex airsoft and ex car hobby or whatever. He's like, yeah, it's like I've started to get so many people now interested in just making the crossover to Nerf. It's just, when you evaluate it at, and you play, you realize that the cost of entry, the barrier of entry, I should say, and everything about it is just so much more fun, accessible. There's so many, you could talk about the good things about Nerf forever. That's why we are almost at 3 hours on this pod.
I would say the venue options, but because of how
having an amazing
safe
time.
it is.
Well, yeah, that's just from the community side. But yeah, this particular news cycle, Siren NSI is a company that's known for their Smithsonian crystal growing kits and rock tumblers. And not only do they come out with blasters, but ultimate performance blasters. What are we even talking about?
Yeah.
It's a crazy time to be alive.
It's been a crazy news cycle.
Yeah.
Okay. I want to do this real fast, and then we're gonna end this show. I'd like to end with a little fun question at the end, and I would like everybody ponder for a moment and come up with your ignoring all the aspects of the reality of running the game and the reality of building the props and stuff like that. If you could have literally any HvZ theme just purely for your own enjoyment, what would it be?
I've already got mine.
Go, Vile.
I got mine too.
Dead Space.
Ooh.
Oh. Yeah, there's something about space stations and sort of that you're very this is almost like Mall Madness, how it's a confined space, but you keep closing off pathways and you have to solve this but still fight through zombies kind of stuff. To me, that is such a much more intense game style, because it's much, again, more closed off. It's not open. You have to figure out puzzles, or you have to get through certain doorways or whatever, or pathways get closed off and reopened depending on whatever you do and stuff. I think that's just you could be really fun with that one if because that's sort of like a venue based thing. But if you had a venue that was just whatever, that would be mine.
All right, NotNuff.
I like the idea of cavemen versus dinosaurs, like Turok the Dinosaur Hunter. I don't know if you guys are old enough to know that game.
Yes.
Oh my God.
Are you kidding me?
But it's that whole caveman, very rudimentary, very primitive survival skills. Maybe you can make a game session where you just have rocks like socks, and then obviously the dinosaurs, they can wear that little T-Rex outfit. I don't know, just make it interesting, make it fun. You can go anywhere with it, but I just like that prehistoric setting.
Are you old enough to know about Turok Dinosaur Hunter? I remember reading about the Super Nintendo version about that game in Nintendo Power.
Didn't even know they had a Super Nintendo, so you got me beat, KT.
Oh, yes.
I knew they had N64, which is amazing.
Older.
Yeah, that was... It's older than that, yeah.
Yep. Mike, you got one? I don't know if you've ever thought about theming HvZs or anything. So.
No. It's funny because Spies was on my bucket list for since COVID. I wrote a week-long that got canned because of COVID in 2020. Spies was on my list for forever. Adventure, what we did the year before with Indiana Jones, has been on my list forever.
I like that.
One of the ones because I did a bunch when I was in college. One of the things I'd love to revisit Willy Wonka again at some point. The big one though that currently sits in my head was the concept of like time travel. Because
Oh.
just the amount of jokes that you can make about the day disco died, just
When you say spies, do you mean more like a 007 type spy, or like more like a Metal Gear Solid kind of gameplay, like trying to not make any noise, trying to be sneaky?
so for this year's game, we did both.
Rad.
Straight up, one of our characters was named Hot Snake after Solid Snake, and we actually
There we go.
made the humans build him a box and escort him while he was wearing it.
Oh, that's so fun. That's so
That's
good.
great.
I love that.
So one of the things that's kind of at its core, like Survival Fest, the games become homages to different genres. So there was adventure, there was spies, and so you get kind of this nice blend of a bunch of different media references in the process. Um, and so yeah, but time travel's high on my list. The other one that is very much high on my list right now is it's I don't know how to describe it in like a single word, but it's that concept of, so you know, like all of your standard like zombie apocalypse media, like The Walking Dead, all of that. There's
Yeah.
this interesting subset of it that I have really grown attached to, that is looks at the apocalypse and says, "This is the best thing ever. We're just gonna have a good time."
Soft
Yeah.
apocalypse.
So like,
So this is something that I'm really into. There's I mentioned the there's a manga that's really closely associated with this. And I always forget what the name is. Yokohama Kadashi Kiku is what it is. And
okay,
it's about an apocalypse, but in that apocalypse, everybody's just cooperating and being nice. And it's such an interesting and sort of like different setting. I don't know if I think that's more or less what you're talking about. I've actually written a song about this topic.
So the I don't remember if it's a manga, but the anime that I had watched recently it's called Zom 100 Bucket List of the Dead. And like the premise of the show is this 20-something-year-old kid was working at an exploitative company, not having fun, like very much getting worn down to the bone. And then the apocalypse happens, and the revelation of, I don't have to go into work tomorrow, gives him like a new outlook of joy on life. And the rest of the series is just like a slice of life. This is everything I want to do before I become a zombie. And it's like episode 2 is straight up, I want to sit at home and drink alcohol all day, but I'm out of alcohol. So then it turns into, okay, we're going to the supermarket in the apocalypse. There are zombies. Oh boy. And it is, in my experience, in my knowledge, in my history, that's kind of like one of the core mindsets of HvZ when it was first created. Kind of what people liked was just this, like, part of it is just living through life with zombies now and the kind of like shenanigans that come from it.
I love that. I love that a lot. I that's a very similar, obviously with the addition of zombies, but like it's a very similar to what I was talking about.
Yep.
I love that whole idea. I think that's such a great philosophy on the game, and it makes me wish I'd gone before you, because my answer is really boring compared to this grand philosophical point. I was just gonna say I would really enjoy a Halo themed game, which is like not even a surprising answer from me. But part of the thing specifically about it, I really love the idea of multi-faction, where like the humans, quote unquote, have multiple factions. So it's like HvZ, and Halo is uniquely set up for that kind of thing. One of the goals for them would be looking at aspects of the Halo story to actually have the Great Schism be a goal, a point in the game where the humans are trying to pull a portion of the like pull the Sangheili to their side, but also the Flood have such specific rules for, because it's very common for the zombies to grow in their power and their abilities. The Flood have such specific rules for making that happen, that I think could really inspire new and exciting game approaches.
Yeah, I'm trying to see.
Yep.
Right. It's funny because I know for a fact that there is a Helldivers themed game coming up. I know that sometime in the
Ooh.
fall there is Destiny, and I know there's one more in between the two, and I can't remember what the theme is. They're all being run on Ohio University Athens campus. I'm just trying to remember what the middle one was. It is
Fallout.
I don't.
I mean, video games have always been a really good source. for
Video
this
games
kind
are
of
an
gameplay.
amazing source.
I just specifically wanted to bring up Halo because
Oh no,
it
completely.
has a zombie archetype that is different from most other zombie archetypes, and I wonder if that would. I mean, like eventually you reach the point where a grave mind actually can allow individuals to use weapons again. So like the idea that it could get to that point where I Mayhem messed with this a little bit, where there were a couple ZNPCs who could actually use blasters in a limited capacity. Like it becomes a really important thing for the humans to do to continue to like hold back the development of the zombies, because if they reach a certain point, some of them will actually start to pick blasters up.
Yep.
And then you're really in trouble. Anyway, that's my idea. I'm going to throw that out there. We have gone almost to 3 hours. This will be the longest episode of this podcast.
I was just going to ask you, what's the record? Because this
I think the
seems
record is
like
2.5, roughly.
Yeah.
you're like right here, bro. This is the record.
We are well
This'll
over that.
probably be
This
it.
is the record. We are very close to 3 hours. Once I add the music, we may actually get there. But this has been an incredible conversation. Really, really enjoyed this. It is time. If anybody has listened this far into the show, this is one of those episodes that you like listen to over the course of the week, where you keep coming back to it.
Yep.
But for those people, Mike, tell us where they can find you, where they can find Survival Fest, and where they can find out more about the things that you're passionate about.
So I can be found on almost a lot of Nerf Discords as Spy Mike or Michael. That would be the biggest place to find me. Survival Fest, Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, website. We have the whole spread of them.
We'll have all this stuff linked down in the description, of course.
Yep.
Sweet.
But yeah.
Well, thank you so much for coming on. Really, really great for you to put the time out, especially right now, staying up for 3 hours to record a podcast when you're still recovering from running the show. But I also think it's really important to capture these moments after you've put on such an important event in the hobby, and to sort of capture the moment with you a little bit, and get your feelings.
Mike, while I have you here real quick, will you be going to End War?
I will be at End War. Survival Fest will have a table. You'll see me there.
Awesome, because I actually am going with James, so I'll see you there.
Nice.
Beautiful.
That's dope.
Looking forward to that. Yep.
NotNuff, thank you for joining us at the last second this episode, and not only guest hosting the show itself, but also popping up on the podcast. Tell the folks where they can find you.
Yeah, not too big on social media, but obviously NotNuffNerf on the Discord channels. I'm on a bunch of servers, just like Mike. And I have an Instagram, NotNuffNerf. That's where I do most of the behind the scenes, behind the curtains kind of posting, with a little bit more laid back stuff. And of course, the YouTube channel, which I appreciate. If you could subscribe, and if you enjoy the content, share it with your friends. NotNuffNerf as well on there. Thanks, KT, for having me. It was a blast.
Hell yeah. Thank you so much for bringing your voice to this conversation. Vile.
I'm probably modding something right now if it's on a Saturday, because Fridays and Saturdays always over on Twitch, getting dirty and something.
Heck yeah. And for myself, I've been teasing this for the last couple episodes. My band has finally released our EP. And I linked it in the Discord. I may or may not link it in the
shameless plug.
Well, you know what? I'm not streaming right now, and I'm not really making Nerf videos. But people have been asking about my music. I mean, if you watch this show, you listen to my music all the time. Not that my band sounds like the soundtrack to the Foam News Collective or anything, but you know, I contributed to all the songs in this, produced the record, co-produced it with a guitar player, and
Nice.
you know, pretty proud of it. So if you're curious what other kind of stuff we get up to, check it out. Let me know what you think. I think somebody from this community bought one of the songs, so thank you for that. If you're listening to this.
Are you going to link the iTunes store or the Apple Music or Amazon Music?
We sort of soft launched it. It's just on Bandcamp right now. It will be on streaming platforms and on Apple Music later in the summer. But I will probably go ahead and link to the Bandcamp somewhere. And there is a link to it in we have a channel in our Discord for the main hosts of the show to share our other work. It is linked there. I did make a post about it this last weekend.
Ooh.
So if you want to check it out, you can find it on the Discord, or you can just ask me. Yeah, you can just DM me, ask me about it.
Awesome.
And that's it. I think we casted a pod. I think we've casted more than our share of pod tonight. So I hope everybody can get some sleep. I think Vile still has to record.
I do.
And I'm gonna get up in the morning. I'm gonna go to bed, and I'm gonna get up in the morning, and I'm gonna start putting this new show together. So, thanks again, everybody. Have a great night. Thanks for listening, folks.
You too.
Bye.
Yep.
Yeah.
Take care. Bye.
Bye.